you need when you don't have the money to get them? How do you overcome, like what you were asking me, how do you overcome fear and doubt and keep moving forward in all of those things? And it was actually kind of therapeutic writing the book, because it caused me to relive memories of things and difficulties that I've had and triumphs and all those things over the years, because I've never done that kind of an in-depth look back. So that was interesting. But that's why I wrote the book, is I wanted those ideas to be shared with a much wider audience, because I really think it can help people and help maybe inspire them to take a chance that they might have been afraid to take, because everybody was kind of afraid to take that chance. No, you don't know it's going to work. So the only way, the phrase I love is from Lloyd Price, who I wrote my book about. And he said, well, the sure way to make sure that nothing happens is do nothing. And he's right. So you put it out there. You're not going to be in any worse position than before you put it out there. And you might be in a better position afterwards.
Yeah. Excellent. So that does transition nicely then to what you're currently doing also, which is the play. And so it's titled Personality, the Lloyd Price musical. Is it a play or is it a musical? Is it just? It's
a musical.
Okay, so it's a musical. So what initially made you want to write a musical, and how has that been like now?
So I was approached by someone who I had worked with, a man by the name of John Bonanni, who used to be the executive producer for Radio City Music Hall. And I did the 75th anniversary film for their Christmas spectacular. Mm-hmm. And we worked really well together, and he liked what I did, and it was a cool gig. He left Radio City. After 12 years, he had actually, been on Broadway as a stage manager. And he was getting back to theater. And he and Lloyd went to the same eye doctor. And he said to me, but that's how stuff happens. There's like not magic to this stuff. It's coincidence and serendipity, a conversation. Things happen that way. And then you have to act on it when you hear it. Yeah. And so it's kind of cool. And he called me up and said, have you ever heard of Lloyd Price? And I said, oh, yeah, because you've got walk of personality. Yeah. So I said, I want to do a short documentary of him to sort of raise his profile, because I want to pitch a project about him. So I researched Lloyd, and then I did about a 3-hour interview with him. And I was so taken by his story, which is an extraordinary story. And, Lloyd was the first teenager to sell over 1 million records. Wow. He was and as a result, since he's black, but nobody's prejudiced against green. And back when he recorded his first song, Lottie Miss Claudie, mm-hmm. there was a wall that was called Race Records. If you wanted a record by a black artist, you had to go to a black record store. But nobody wanted to miss out on that kind of money. And there was just a seismic change that happened, which was the birth of rock and roll.
Yeah.
So Lloyd's life happened at the crossroads of the youth movement, the civil rights movement, and the birth of rock and roll. Because the music industry used to be an adult business. Teenagers did not buy records until getting into the 1950s. So his story was amazing. And I wrote the first few scenes. I said to Lloyd, I want to tell your story. And I wrote the first few scenes and sort of performed them for him, and he loved it. And we were then off and running. And I knew he had great music, and the play is a musical. It's really a play with music. I wrote the play first, okay, because I don't necessarily like musicals, but I love Sondheim musicals. I love musicals that are motivated by something other than just, the kind of songs that you hear at every musical. And so I wanted to make sure that there was a strong story, that this wasn't just a jukebox musical that played a bunch of hits, that there was a real story there. And so that's what I concentrated on, and then worked in songs where appropriate, because I don't like it when people all of a sudden burst into song. And so all of the songs that happen in this are a result that he's performing or he's recording, or there's a real world motivation, not that, across a crowded room. And those are great, but it's just not where my heart is.
I completely agree with you. I've had so many of these kind of conversations back in my previous, career. And so, yes, so it sounds absolutely amazing. So you wrote this production. How did you get together like the financing part of it, and then ultimately get it into a theater and decide on a date when like the team is going to come together and this potential project is going to be opening up? How did that all come together?
So when I finished writing the play, I had to figure out what the next steps were. And I was, excited about what I had written, which I've rewritten probably 30 times since then, by the way. And there's something I wanted to talk about just in terms of editing, because I think that's a key thing in all creative careers. But I called up a friend of mine, Lee Wilkoff, who is a tremendously talented actor. And we grew up together. We knew each other since we were kids. He's from Canton, Ohio. I used to stay at their house, and so Lee and I were talking, and he said, weren't you writing a play? And I said, yeah. And he said, so where's that at? And I said, well, it's done. I want to start getting it out there. Mm-hmm. And he said, do you have a general manager? And I said, no, what is that? Because I didn't really know. And so he mentioned someone to me, and a woman by the name of Wendy Orshan, who was a great general manager on Broadway. I didn't know who she was. And he said, have you heard of her? And I said, no. And he said, you at your computer, look her up. Look up 101 Productions. And I did. And, she had a huge, huge resume. Mm-hmm. Well, it happened that Lee's wife, Connie, mm-hmm. and Wendy used to wait tables together 35 years earlier. And so he said, Wendy's the godmother to our daughter. Do you want to meet with her? I said, yeah. He said, all right, I'll call her. And he did. Mm-hmm. And I met with her the next day, which was just kind of amazing how I ended up there. And she introduced me to the general manager that I am now using, who's great, Adam Hess, who's wonderful, terrific person. And, then one person leads to another. And, once you start dropping the breadcrumbs and trying to follow that path. And so I eventually met people. I had raised some money because I had written a film, and I'd raised some money for development. Mm-hmm. But when Lloyd's, and I like the script a lot, but Lloyd's script is really important to me because it's about race, which is an incredibly important issue. Mm-hmm. And it's about civil rights. It's about music that I love. It's about popular culture that I love. And I wanted to also get this on stage while Lloyd is still alive and able to get some of the accolades that he's long overdue. And he's 87. Okay. So I had some seed money, and I was able to do a table read. And then I raised a little bit more money, and we did what's called a 29-hour, which means you have the actors for 29 hours. So there was 3 days of rehearsal and 2 performances, and that's when the actors stand with, music stands with their script. Mm-hmm. The response was really good. And then I was able to raise money to do a full-up workshop where we hired a choreographer. We had a 7-piece band, and that was extremely well received. I was able to raise further money on that. And then we got a theater deal with People's Light Theater, which is a very good regional theater in Malvern outside of Philadelphia. Mm-hmm. And they just started producing original work a few years ago, and they have been very supportive and really like the play. And that's where it's going to have its world premiere.
Wonderful. And so how has this process been like during COVID? Because I know that everything is shut down, and the theater world is holding its breath, waiting to find out when things can kind of turn back on again. And so how are you looking at that, being in the middle of it with a brand new production?
So Originally, we signed the theater deal. I signed the final contracts at the end of December of 19,
Okay.
and was very excited. I thought, man, I wish we were supposed to then open in April of 21.
Okay.
Which seemed, like an eternity away. It was like 15 months away or something like that. And I was trying at first to see if there's any way we could open up for the fall season, as opposed to waiting till spring of the next year.
Mm-hmm.
There wasn't. Thank goodness there wasn't, because about 2.5 months later is when we hit into COVID.
Yeah.
And so one of the things that I've done is we were able to work with the theater and move the play from April of 21 to February of 22. Where, of course, we all hope that the world will be in a better place, that we can go to live events safely,
Yeah.
and that theater and music clubs and sporting events and all those things are happening again, which we all hope they will be. And I think there will be a lot of pent-up demand for that kind of entertainment.
Mm-hmm.
But, it takes a long time to mount a play. If I knew how long it took, I'd have started when I was younger. But, and then we had to add another 14, 15 months on already a future date, but it was the right thing to do.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Well, this is amazing. And I can't wait for it to come out, because it sounds like a fantastic show. With everything that you have done and experienced in your career so far, what would you say has been the best advice that you were ever given?
Always be curious, be present, ask questions, and listen. And that has served me well throughout my career, because as I tell my students, the only dumb questions, because they're always afraid, I was going to ask a question, but I was afraid it was a dumb question. And so the only dumb question is the one you don't ask that ends up biting you in the ass later because you didn't ask it.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that curiosity is essential to creativity. I think being present is essential in creativity and relationships. I think that asking questions is the best way to learn. And I think that listening is the best way to have a creative collaboration.
Mm-hmm. Well, wonderful. Jeff, thank you so much. That's a great way to kind of wrap up our conversation. And I really appreciate your time today. If the listeners want to buy your book or see more of what you're working on, where is the best place they can go to do all of that?
So the book, Creative Careers, Making a Living with Your Ideas, is available on Amazon and all fine booksellers. And my website is Madoff Productions, Madoff Productions. There is a Instagram page, which is at Madoff Productions. And then there is a website for Creative Careers, which is www.acreativecareer.com, and also an Instagram page, which is acreativecareer.com. And then on LinkedIn, under my name, be Jeffrey Madoff, where you can see clips from my class. You can see extended clips on the website, but you can see things on LinkedIn also.
Okay, wonderful. That's extensive, and I will put all those links in the show notes so listeners can click right through and buy your book and connect with you as much as they'd like.
Great.
But again, thank you so much, Jeff. I really appreciate your time today. This has absolutely been wonderful.
Thank you. I feel the same way. I'm very nice to meet you, and thanks a lot.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to another episode of Advance Your Art with Yuri Cataldo. If you like this episode, please remember to give us a 5-star rating, like, and share with a friend. Our theme music is written and mixed by Chicago-based composer Ryan Black of Black Bones Collaborative. To listen to the full catalog of our episodes, go to advanceyourart.com. To see what I'm working on or book a time with me or buy a copy of my book, Be Left Behind, go to yuricataldo.com. Thank you so much and have a great day.